today.
It's encumbersome.
Okay, never mind.
Okay.
No, we gotta go do some business to make your trip worthwhile.
Well, let's stay here a couple hours.
And improve the services.
Make it worthwhile to the finance meeting tomorrow.
We ready?
Something we should actually
Are we all set?
say about is how many people have paid their bills.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What a difference a month makes in terms of the weather, huh? Bruce, roll call, please.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bisbal.
Here.
Councilmember Ellis.
Here.
Councilmember Gazelle.
Here.
Councilmember Kujerski.
Here.
Councilmember Kusick.
Right here.
Councilmember Seeley.
Present.
On page 3 to 6 are the minutes from the January 16th meeting. Please take a look, and if they're okay, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On page 7 to 10 are different commission minutes. We're accepting them in the public domain. I need a motion to approve. Accept, I mean.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public comment? Any public comment? If not, Rhonda, chairperson report?
Good evening, everyone. In your packet, you have your list of wire transfers for the month. There's really nothing unusual on this list. Just more tax distributions and the payroll taxes, really. With the list of checks, was a couple checks issued for water main break repairs, payment to the city of Grosse Pointe Farms for the public safety radio system. For some reason, we had several checks for salt. I'm not sure why. The roads look
Yeah.
fine.
I think that was the last one, though.
You look all
Hopefully.
tore up.
Also, there was a nearly $5,600 check written for Gunner's meters. I know the water department's been busy putting those new meters in hopefully the last batch of homes to go. And other than that, everything basically is just normal expense. Do you have any
How
questions?
far along are they with the meters? You know, percentage-wise?
I know it's getting close to the 3/4, so.
Who's asking up here?
And then once it's 100%, then that means that, again, no hand,
Right, they won't be having to go door to door.
okay.
No, we only go to third homes anyhow, right?
Right.
So, we've already reduced it. He has all that free time on his hands now.
He's got to go to every other house.
Are there any questions of Rhonda, or? If not, I need a motion to approve this check register run.
Approved. So moved.
Is there support?
Second.
Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Also, with the property tax season coming to an end here soon, next week, February 28th, we still have 32 parcels that have not paid either a combination of summer and winter or just winter tax bills. So today we did send a reminder notice out to them, so in case anyone thought they paid it and we haven't received it, they'll be able to get a notice before
March
it's
1st.
delinquent to the county.
Okay, that's nice.
And that includes about 59,000 of city taxes.
Okay. Because after March 1st, they'll have to go downtown to pay it.
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Is that pretty much normal, though? That's a little high.
In prior years, we were more like in the 100,000 range.
Oh.
So, in the last few years, it's pretty much been an average. And also, I'd like to mention too that in the next newsletter, there'll be an item in there about the water bills. That I'm now able to email water bills, should anyone wish to have that instead of the postcard coming to their home. So it's basically just get a hold of me, name, address, and what your email address is. And we'll go from there.
Then we save on the postage a little bit.
Yeah,
okay?
and at least, lesser the chance of the postcard getting misplaced.
Being pitched. Guilty.
Thanks, Rhonda. Bruce, Finance Committee?
Finance Committee is meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock. All are welcome. We are going to be talking about our upcoming year budget, the park improvement plans that was handed out tonight, along with our road improvements that we need, that we're going to embark upon. As we all know, the roads are falling apart with this weather, so we've got a full plate for tomorrow. Then we'll be coming with our usual timing for a budget presentation in May. So that's what we're doing.
All right, thanks, Bruce. Chief, Public Safety?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The last 30 days was exceptionally quiet for us. However, there were several OWI arrests that we were involved in, as well as numerous forfeitures. One of the arrests I observed myself while walking with my wife on Lakeshore on Sunday. Vehicle was curb to curb southbound on Lakeshore on the north end, and I called my supervisor on the phone, and he intercepted the vehicle, and turns out the driver was intoxicated. He was suspended and he had several criminal warrants, so they took him into custody. The Grosse Pointe Park officers responded to 2 mutual aid house fires this month, one in Harper Woods on February 13th and one in Grosse Pointe Woods at Martyr and Vernier. All went well, no injuries, no damaged equipment. The computers that were approved were ordered for the new cars, the new computers for the cars, rather, and we expect to receive those probably within about 30 days. And with the assistance of DPW, we will get those installed into the, Scott DeGeer does a tremendous job. Not only does he understand how a vehicle runs, but he understands the computer and the computer side of all of that. He saves us a lot of money in us installation costs, so we're grateful to DPW. Training sometimes comes in many different forms. Realizing over my career that many injuries occur while police, fire, and especially paramedics are performing their job, I have taken advantage of one of my lieutenants, Lieutenant Wierenski, who is an accomplished weightlifter and a very knowledgeable individual when it comes to proper techniques, etc. Ken has put together a program for us. We're happy to have him, in-house, and he is. A lot of guys go off on injuries because of lower back issues, leg issues, back issues, and so he has put together a program for us so that we can hopefully stay away from those type of injuries. So, kind of proactive in that regard. Once again, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Life-Saving Awards were just announced. We will be again requesting enforcement awards for our 2 top performers this year. So, and we do, as a matter of being the smallest department in Grosse Pointe, we write the second most OWI violations and make those arrests as any other department. So we're proud of that, and they will receive those awards, and there's a breakfast that they attend. So that's all I have for tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Chief, you said we had a couple forfeitures. Were they vehicle forfeitures?
Most likely cash. They're on drug arrests, and, we take the cash, etc. Some of them are vehicles. Most of them are not worth anything. So we end up. They have an option through the county to get them back if they pay our costs, the department's costs. So, but very seldomly are there any vehicles of value. So,
Okay. Any questions of the chief?
Yeah, Chief, what happens to the old computers?
well, we're probably going to keep the modems, but as far as the screen and the keyboards. They're probably not worth much. They can possibly be recycled, but we've had a lot of problems with these ones. They're about 8 years old. They go down a lot. So, do you have a thought on that, or?
No, I was just wondering if it's saleable or something we traded in, or how it works.
Well, we
that's all.
can try and put them out to many times smaller departments, especially up north. We'll try and utilize that as well. Yeah.
Just curious, that's all.
Okay, any other questions? If not, Brett? Public Works? Been a quiet month, I know, not much going on.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to be extremely brief this evening as well, but as you had mentioned, it's hard to believe. A week ago Saturday, we were fighting a 10-inch snowstorm, and today we hit 62 degrees. So first, I'd like to give a shout out to your DPW staff for doing a beautiful job keeping our roads safe and clear through the heavy snowstorm. And I can say with all the snow that we've had, we've used most of our salt allotment up. However, we are not low on salt. If we need it, we can get it. I'm sure you've heard on the news, there are a lot of communities that are not in that position, but we are not one of them. And now, with this warm weather and the rain, we're out there fighting flooded roads and potholes. So your DPW staff has been quite busy. And I can also say with all the snow we've been having, we're only about 10 inches above normal. Our typical normal is 42 and a half inches, and we've had 52 and a half. And believe it or not, I forget what year it was, but there was one year at this time we had 94 inches of snow throughout the year. So this is not something that we haven't seen before. On a lighter note, we started working on our tennis courts across the street. Thank you to Councilman Seeley for making some arrangements on getting our existing poles that support the lights at the tennis courts, having them sandblasted and galvanized. Councilman Seeley has contacts with some people that were very gracious in helping us out and helping us do the right thing. And we actually have 4 poles back in the DPW as we speak, and we're getting ready to put those back together to get them back up. And the remaining 4 poles are currently at the Sandblast Company. So once again, thank you, Councilman Seeley, for your input there. I certainly appreciate it. I don't know if I mentioned this last month, but the bathhouse at the park's been getting a few updates. We have new countertops over there, new mirrors, and some LED lighting. Councilman Barrett was very helpful with getting that LED lighting in. As a matter of fact, he was a go-between between our vendor up at X-Way Electric, and he made things happen, so we thank him for that as well. And we're currently looking into replacing the bathroom and the locker room doors. We've had a few quotes that we've accepted, and right now we're still looking for the right thing to put in. Also, our tree trimming is almost complete. Currently, we're working in Zone 4, which is Woodland Shore to Weber. I would say we're 90% plus done. We have a lot of cleanup work that needs to be done because they were working in the snow. And believe it or not, a lot of the branches that when they fell out of the trees, they went right into the snow pile and we didn't see them. So with all this melting, we're finding there's quite a mess out there that needs to be cleaned up. So we'll be getting that taken care of soon, and we have some touch-up work that needs to be done. Also, as I mentioned earlier, with this warm weather, I'm sure you're aware, you've seen it on the news, there's potholes everywhere. Feel free to give us a call if you see something. We're out there almost daily trying to fix potholes, but we can't see everything. So phone calls from everyone are certainly appreciated. When the call comes, we can usually get at them the same day or the next day. And that's all I have for this evening. If you have any questions, I could try to answer them at this time.
Thanks, Brett. Any questions?
Wonderful, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
report. Thanks. Park Committee?
That's me. Just when you thought you were gonna get out of here early, eh? My turn.
Quiet for the last 2 years, and now you're just gonna shine.
Yeah, I was always the last guy.
Yeah.
No, we, the park committee met for the first time this year, a couple weeks ago. And I just want to point out the people that are, the new folks that are on the new park committee. Joe Cipriano is the chairperson, and Tom Mellos, committee member off of Lockmore. Kathy Mermagiz, that lives on Willow Tree Place. Virginia Rice, Fair Lake Lane, and John Mueller that lives on North Edgewood. So those are names when you hear them on TV. Those are the folks that we're working with on that now. Just several things to go over. We're gonna, during the meeting, we talked about several things, but the tennis court, of course, is scheduled to start here in April, mid-April or so. The lighting, Brett already mentioned, is being worked on. One of the other things was that we looked at paving the parking lot or having that done. And I think one of the quotes that came in early was a quote of about $400K. And we've since got some other quotes, and it's gone down considerably. Looks like we can get that work done for about $150K. So that ought to really be good for the finance committee to take a look at that tomorrow. Yeah, of course, there's still things that are being talked about. The gatehouse, widening of the gates, and the staffing. And I think a lot of that will probably be discussed at tomorrow's Finance Committee. Oh, I got the wrong paper here. Just a few more things. Barcode on parking and park passes, that was discussed, but it's too late this year to get into that. So that's gonna be reconsidered for the 2019 season. We'll look at that again. Park Wi-Fi, that's being planned to be installed this summer.
Yes.
But I think that after all the construction is done, we'll find out where you gotta put all the antennas and everything. It'll be coming in then, so, an exact date on that, don't know. The restrooms, Brett touched on that. There's been some improvements done to them. There's looking to be more improvements done to those. And cameras, the chief has researched the cost and locations. And, but once it's determined whether the new gatehouse is gonna go in, where it's gonna go in, and all the paving is done, then, and we'll look again at that to make sure we have just the right spots. And I think Matt's gonna maybe touch on that camera issue. The pre-construction meeting for the tennis courts is in March. As the park committee, we're gonna monitor that real close. We're looking right now from the park committee to look at this low-hanging fruit stuff, just to get, little things done and that we can do immediately once the weather turns for us. So we're keeping an eye on those things. We talked, one of the things that was brought up that someone had mentioned at the parks meeting was what responsibility the Little League has and the city as far as the ball field out here. And I spoke this week with Brett, and it seems like they work hand in hand very closely on that. And if there's like maybe an additional cut or something that they want because of a ball game, that have been postponed or something, and it's now later in the week, several days after a cut, these guys have said, just let us know and we'll take care of that. So, there's no memorandum of understanding. It's a handshake basically, but it seems like everything is working out for those guys. That's all I got.
Okay. Any questions? Good report, Doug. The only thing I guess to add or amplify is the park committee will be reviewing all park passes that are issued, so you'll have jurisdiction over the policies and how we grant park passes to non-resident voters even as well. And then I think second is we talked about like with the soccer association, the East Side Soccer Association, whether or not we'll be able to have a field use, some kind of lease agreement or something. I don't know if we have one now, but how we kind of make sure we have good control. Since we implemented the policy 2 years ago of not allowing any games after 12 noon, it really reduced the amount of traffic in both the municipal lot as well as across the street. Before 12, yeah, before 12. So, and then also we had some stray teams or imposter teams from St. Clair Shores and other jurisdictions that just took that field because it was such a great field. So, thanks, Doug, for your good work. Harbor Committee? There is our chairperson. Thank you, Dr. Siegel, for coming today.
Good evening. I'm John Seago, of the new Harbor Committee that we split off with Parks and Harbor. We had a meeting last Wednesday. It's kind of short and sweet. And we had three main things we came up with. First of all, there's about 50 pilings that have popped from the wells, and Councilman Seeley did a tentative call to a couple companies that drive them back into proper position. And I looked at last year's notes in April, and there were 40, so I guess it didn't get addressed last year, so we're going to try to get that addressed this year. So we got 2 bids, tentative bids, and he's going to probably work with Mr. Krolchik and try to get some more bids going. Number 2, we're going to be requiring well renters to notify the harbor master upon their arrival so that they can have their vessel inspected that it's in proper confines of the slip for safety purposes. Violators will be reassigned to an appropriate size well and correspondingly new fees. And Number 3, we're requesting that vessel data, MC numbers, registration, home address, and insurance forms all match with addresses and names, and also that will preclude also for the park passes that seem to be floating around in excess with residents, and I think there's some non-residents that kind of do the issue with that. So once we get that under control, the park will be under control.
Good.
That's our initial meeting, so that's where we're starting out at.
Good work, John. Matt, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, for starters, I'd like to thank John for calling the meeting and doing the work that you've done so far. I think we've got a good start going. A couple of things. We've talked about the idea of adding a website page that basically, I don't know if anybody's ever booked an airline ticket where you go on and you see the schematic of the plane and the seats are illuminated that are available in one color and the ones that are taken are in another color. It would be basically a layout of the harbor, and let's say our deadline is February 15th. After February 15th, anyone who has not paid, all of those slips become green. And people can literally go online, click the well they want. We're hoping to even set it up that they can pay with a credit card right then online and basically enter all of their information. That's part one. One of the issues that was raised is that non-residents are not supposed to get an automatic renewal in their slip. What's supposed to happen is at the end of a season, all of the non-resident slips are to be posted as available, and until the deadline to reserve those passes, those slips are only available to be made available to residents. So then, in this case, on the 16th, then non-residents would have the opportunity to reserve a said slip. But right now, we actually have residents who want to get into a specific well, and because we're automatically renewing people, non-residents are getting priority over the residents, which isn't what we really want to do or trying to have happen. So those are some great issues. You know, John had taken pictures of almost every runway in the harbor, and it's amazing how many boats are in slips that are too small for the boat, and there's parts of the boat hanging out past the last piling. When the outdrives come up, the motors and outdrives are hanging 2, 3, 4 feet out into the runway, and it's a safety hazard for people who are trying to dock, especially on a windy day when you don't have great control of an idling boat. So what we'd like to do is once a boater puts their boat in the slip, to notify the park and then let us either have, you know, someone at the park or someone on the committee go and just take a quick look at the setup, make sure the boat's moored properly and in the right size well. If not, they'll be sent a correspondence that says we're putting you into a larger size well. The one that you're in is insufficient for your boat.
If
And
it's
the other-
available?
Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, you know,
Then if
a
it-
lot of people are trying to take smaller wells just to save a buck. And I think that we can probably accommodate everybody and make the harbor safer at the same time. Right now, no one is checking to see that if the MC numbers that are on the forms upstairs match the boat that's in the slip, or if the boat is actually currently registered. So some boats have MC numbers and an expired registration. So, and John brought up the proof of insurance. I mean, if there's a fire in the harbor and we find out that the boat that started it all didn't have insurance, that's not a good thing. So, you know, just little things like this that haven't really been addressed, and I thought we had a great meeting, so, again, hats off to John, and just in 2 phone calls, on the 50 pilings that have to be driven down, we went from $100 per piling to $75. So,
Did you contact the yacht club? Because we used to do that with the yacht club, right?
We have in the past, used their vendor at whatever the unit cost.
nothing's set in stone, but what we're getting at more than anything is that I think with a little bit of, additional effort, we'll probably be able to save some money. We've been using Champion out of Harson's Island, and they've done a great job for us. So, you know, I'm not suggesting we need to change vendors, but I think we should at least look at pricing.
Absolutely. Do you expect that you You've indicated, I don't know a lot about boats, but you're saying a lot of boats are not in the right well size. They're in a well that's too small for their boat. Do we have based on your
It can be
experience,
accommodated.
you don't see any issues with that? What percentage would you guess is like that? 15, 20?
We have 130 wells approximately for boats, excluding jet skis and kayaks. So maybe 8-9%.
So, okay, so it'd be 10%.
So not even so much danger of running into something in a fairway. There's boats that are over the walkways or the finger piers, the docks that have pulpits, have anchors, and you don't want to get hit with that either.
So you think about 10%, and you think we got enough space in the
I've
larger?
been like 4 times the past 4 years trying to rearrange this.
I'm not doubting that, but I'm just curious as to.
Oh, it can be arranged, and then you actually have too small of a boat and a bigger slip.
That's my next question.
You could swap easily.
So you're
Or
gonna.
you could upseat a non-resident also, if you get to it before they get in there.
And have the non-residents been made aware of the fact at this point that, look, the incumbent non-residents who have had up to date this privilege of automatic renewal, are they aware that this privilege, if you will?
I think they know that it's not a given every year, because the person used to be next to me was a non-resident. I can see they're not coming in there this coming year, so.
To answer your question, so far they have not been notified, but it's our intention, now that the deadline is passed, to basically come up with a census of who's paid and who isn't, send out a letter and say, you know.
Configure the harbor and then say, here's what's available.
More important, you know, act now or we're going to make your well available to other people. So, you know, there's been a real lax attitude about getting money, and some people wait until Memorial Day to pay for their well because they know it's reserved for them. And that's really not our policy. So I think, you know, this first year we'll probably get some growing pains from, you know, actually enforcing the rules that are there, but ultimately the harbor will run better, and I think it'll benefit everybody else.
Plus you'll get more money.
Well, right now it's bringing in over $250,000 in revenue. I mean, it's not a small entity at all for us.
You got a bond that's gotta be paid and you're not covering it.
Now,
But every dollar you get contributes to that, and I encourage you 150% to get the non-residents in line. Absolutely. I think, I applaud your efforts, both of you. Tremendous.
Well, John feels, I think we can raise another $5,000, you know, just by reconfiguring the boats in the proper size. And that's recurring, that's each year. As well as maybe even having some policy for the unused wells, perhaps.
My last question is, you raised the rate, you decided to raise the well rates 5% for the next 3 years, correct? Isn't that what the decision was? Didn't they just-
I wasn't informed on that.
3%.
John's like, I didn't do that.
Per annum.
But John's like, I didn't do that.
The next 3 years.
I wasn't involved in that.
My question is, have you encountered any pushback on
No,
that?
not yet.
The
Nobody
date
knows
has
about it
passed, February 15th. Where are we with how many wells are reserved available? Do we know that?
Tom does, I don't, but
Okay.
we'll get your note.
Okay.
So that's-
What we have, how many people did pay by the 15th?
John, thanks for your good work. Matt, thanks for working with them. Bob, infrastructure?
Just
Oh, no.
one
The
thing,
party's
which is
over.
the shoreline. I remember during the summer, we went on a little expedited to take a look at our shoreline. And so there's going to be a demonstration project here, and this can be covered a little bit later on by Mark. NOAA's going to offer some cash up. It's National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. I don't know where they come from, but they got some cash. Because it's going to take a lot of money to fix the seawall. All the way 2 miles, or 1 mile in the farms and 2 miles in the shores. As I said before, anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 a foot.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but anyhow, this little demonstration project that Mark's going to talk about later on will cover most of that.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Shores Improvement Foundation, Brett? You're ready, willing, and eager. You're ready, willing, and eager to tell us about the Improvement Foundation.
Let's see. We have not met yet until this March, which is gonna be about 3 weeks from now, we'll be meeting. I've been pretty busy. I'm at the invite of Mr. John Seago and Mr. Seeley. I attended their little Harbor Committee meeting. Found it very interesting to see how that works down there, so I appreciate the invite. I'd like to meet with Mr. Kuchek and his group when's your next meeting, March?
March 8th.
Very good. But I've been meeting again, as I said, with everybody else. We had a town hall meeting. I represented the foundation there. Discussed some tennis court options and that type of thing. Really, we have a little membership drive in the works right now, and that's pretty much all we're working on. A couple projects in the wind, but until the next meeting, I really don't have much to say yet as far as the foundation goes.
Okay.
Any questions I can perhaps have?
Well, you know how important the Improvement Foundation is to the city for the, the extra projects that you're able to help support. So
Absolutely. We're
we
involved.
appreciate your good work in raising the money, Brett.
Good. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Ted, if it's all right, I'd like to comment too as liaison. to the-
Sure.
Brett and I have had the opportunity to have several conversations about where the foundation is with projects and potential projects for the city. And I think that it's no mystery to people who have been around a while that the relationship has been strained in recent years. And one of the things that I wasn't aware of until a couple of recent conversations was when the Schroeder House was built originally, the intent of the foundation, it was even called a warming center, was so that kids could sled on Vernier Hill and they could ice skate right there. And then they could go in and they'd have a place to get some hot cocoa and warm up. And one of the issues that a lot of parents raised was it was difficult to have one child sledding on Vernier Hill and another one across the street ice skating. So at the time that the Schroeder House was built, and it's one of the largest projects the foundation's ever done, the agreement was that the ice skating rink would be moved across the street. That actually happened. And then for whatever reasons, I know that we don't really have a structure set up there. We've never really invested in a real ice rink. So it's made it very difficult on DPW. And ultimately, we've stopped having the ice rink altogether. And I didn't realize that those decisions really upset a lot of people who put in a lot of hard hours to make Schroeder House happen. So what is an opportunity, I think, to maybe mend some fences and extend an olive branch from council to the foundation is right now we're going to be repaving hopefully the parking lot. We're going to be resurfacing the tennis courts. We're going to have obviously all the equipment here to do asphalt work. And we're actually been offered a discount on the resurfacing of the parking lot if we're willing to do it at the same time the tennis courts are done. And the idea was raised to me that as long as the equipment's all here, if the foundation was willing to pay for a small asphalt slab to go in with a curb around it so that DPW can flood that area and actually have a legitimate, real ice skating rink over here. And maybe if we want to get real aggressive for the off-season, maybe put a couple of posts in so it's a basketball court during the warm months. But it's something that could be done and not interfere with the soccer or baseball that's occurring over there. There's location available to do this. And then the original intent of this warming center can actually be fulfilled. So I thought I'd bring this up and just say that I don't think it's an unreasonable idea. And, I appreciate the people on the foundation that approached me privately to discuss this issue with us, because it's my intention as liaison to really get this thing back on track and have some successful ventures together and show their appreciation for all the work and energy that goes into raising money on behalf of our city. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Matt. Would the location be behind the Warming Center?
You know, I think Brett could speak best to that if he wouldn't mind.
Because originally, wasn't it on the Little League field? Was it, I mean, more on the infield part, and then the shallow outfield? I mean, it was more towards Vernier, right? I mean, okay, well, thanks. That would be my concern, as long as it didn't interfere with the baseball field. Okay, because I know you haven't had a project in 2 years, right? Over 2 years? Okay, well, thanks, Brett. Thanks, Matt. Ted? Yes, Bob?
One question Brett Smith maybe can answer. It seems to me that this issue was addressed a couple of years ago, and there was a problem in putting a rink in there?
We had some grade issues when we.
Grade issues, okay.
A simple rink in, where you just use the plywood and you put a liner up. Nice rink. But it had to be perfectly level with water. We had 18 inches of water on one side and no water on the other. So it didn't work out real well for us.
Well, it sounds like you'd still have to put in a fair amount of fill, is that it?
Well, we do have to do some work on that.
You got a lot of infrastructure. The reason we got rid of it was utilization. No one used the rink when we built it. And it continually, the liner got smaller because no one was using it. And that's what we encounter consistently is utilization of the facility. People speak well, but then you have the big issue, which is how are you gonna maintain it? You know, are we gonna flood it, and then are you gonna is it, you know, how fancy do you wanna be? Because you can always go to the farms, use their ice, you know, that's open to us Monday through Friday. We can you know, expand that or something. Go ahead, Brian. Well, we had a preliminary, I remember the grading cost alone in the baseball area was almost $25,000. And that was just a grade to get it semi-level, and then it was gonna pretty much screw up the baseball field simply because of the uneven terrain that you were gonna encounter after that. I'm just telling you where and the big question I ask you is utilization. Because you don't see the utilization out of these facilities going forward. We really don't.
Speaking of utilization, how much is Vernier Hill being used?
A lot
Oh,
on
a
snow
lot.
days.
When we have
So-
snow, there's a
Yeah.
lot of it.
So that said, I mean, if I'm a kid and I can ice skate too, and it's right there, I don't see how it's not gonna get used.
Well, don't forget, the hill's open to non-resident, you know, the farms comes over during the week. So if it's a snow day, like a Thursday, a school snow day, then, you know, then it's pandemonium because the parents just can't wait.
Sure. I just, you know, if the parent, again, if our residents wanna have it, one child sledding and another one playing pickup hockey or whatever, it's kind of a lot to say, well, leave your kid at Vernier Hill and take the other one down to the farms and let them skate on the lake. I
Well, they don't
just,
skate on the lake, they skate on their fancy Zamboni refrigerated rink.
okay.
That they spend a fortune on,
Well,
that no one uses either.
That's the other thing here that I think we need to at least take into consideration, is that this would be a donation from the foundation. And I think we at least owe them the opportunity to explore it themselves and decide if it makes sense for them.
Okay. Well, good discussion.
And just to jump on this is, as a community, we are always trying to attract new families, younger families who will stay here for many, many years. And they're always looking for activities for their children to do. You know, I can say I don't have young children, so, you know, a sledding or an ice rink, but if I'm trying to boost Grosse Pointe Shores and brag and say that we have all of these amenities, which we should have these amenities, I think it's important for our community in the long run and in the future to attract these younger families with children.
Okay, well,
Again, you know, the original intent of that Schroeder House was to be able to serve our community, not to be a restroom for the baseball players and the soccer players. And I think it's really offended a lot of people that worked hard and raised lots of money. So it's something I mean, I'm talking about an opportunity to mend a fence here, and I think it's something we need to consider seriously.
okay, all right. Good discussion. Thank you, Brett, and thank you, Matt. Legal report, Brian?
Okay, thank you. Since the date of the last city council meeting held on January 16th of this year, the city attorney has been engaged in the following activities on behalf of the city. First, we reviewed, and again, these are not in any chronological order. These are how they trotted out in my head. We reviewed and prepared a memorandum to the city regarding a proposed special assessment ordinance that would allow for the imposition of delinquent water, sewer charges, lawn maintenance charges incurred by the city, and board-up expenses incurred by the city, and whether or not the city can specially assess for those or get a lien that has priority over other liens on property or not. I think our conclusion is there's some difficulty with doing anything global like that. But it's that memorandum has been presented to the city just this week, and we'll be talking about it more as we go forward. We also conferred with the city and prepared responses to multiple FOIA requests. It's like, you know, January 1st hit and everybody said, I got to send the city a FOIA request. Freedom of Information Act, for anyone who doesn't know what FOIA is, but you probably all do. We had one for new building permits issued by the city over a 5-year period. We had another one for voter affidavits that were filed by voters not in possession of a picture ID. We had another one for city investment fund records. And then relative to an ongoing property dispute between a couple of owners on Lakeshore Road who are next door to each other, we also received and responded to a FOIA request regarding earlier permits issued by the city relative to one of the two properties. We also had multiple telephone conferences and meetings, including a fairly lengthy meeting today with the city engineer, the city manager, and council for the Southeast Macomb Sanitary District regarding the proposed wastewater discharge contract that the district is taking over from Wayne County. It's all a work in process, and the city's considerations are how much flow the city's going to be allowed in terms of their wastewater discharge on the one hand, and on the other, what the city needs to do on a going forward basis in terms of coming into compliance with the standards that are currently in the Wayne County contract that are being transferred over to the new district. We have a number of additional meetings and calls planned. I think some of that is going to go forward between the two engineers, the city engineer on the one hand and the engineer for the district on the other for the new district. It's kind of a fairly complicated ball of wax, very interesting actually. But we will be getting back together and forging a plan of action in the next few months. The boundary dispute matter I mentioned just a minute ago, there's two neighbors that are up by Larned Lane on right off of Lakeshore that have an issue over a very teeny little sliver of land, not much bigger than this desk, that resulted in the closure, the alleged closure of one of the two neighbors' driveways. And they're ready to go to court, I guess. I've had some discussions with one of the attorneys for one of the property owners. I've reviewed a draft civil complaint that was prepared by him. He asked me to comment on it, and I said, go to it, it's not our issue. I'm not sure where that's gonna go. I don't get the flavor that either of the two parties really wants to sue the other, but it's something
Brian,
that's
is
on
that
our.
a private road now? I mean, I thought that was, the city had,
Larned Lane's still public.
it's still public. We haven't vacated it, which is what they
No,
wanted.
no, they wanted us to vacate that a few years ago in favor of the two property owners that were on either side of the Larned Lane. And started down that road and decided for a number of reasons that it was probably
Okay.
something they ought to pursue individually and not us. Then on the Deeplands Drive matter, as you probably all know, that's an appeal that's pending in the Wayne County Circuit Court. The appeal was filed by the developer relative to the city's denial of the developer's preliminary plat application. We prepared and filed a response brief and exhibits, and I think we filed that on January 22nd. We've had multiple conferences with the city planner, city manager, and city engineer regarding certain items that are in the administrative record on appeal. We also conducted a review of state construction code issues affecting building demolitions at the proposed development. I think, I hear at least, that maybe the house that's on that property might have come down today.
Oh, did it?
And our review had to do with whether or not they needed a particular type of permit for that. Separately, there's a declaratory judgment action that's been filed by the neighbors against the developer based on deed restrictions. That's also in Wayne County Circuit Court in front of a different judge. We're just monitoring that. We're not involved in it. That's not our issue. We're not party to the deed restrictions. The city doesn't have the right to enforce or even appear relative to the deed restrictions. But the outcome of that matter, whenever it happens, may well affect how the city is or is not able to proceed. We prepared for the appeal hearing that we were supposed to have oral argument. That was supposed to have been conducted on February 14th in front of Judge Craig Strong. We got a telephone call late on the 13th indicating that the judge and all his staff were sick with the flu and therefore couldn't hear the appeal the following afternoon. Presently, it's been tentatively rescheduled to March 6th pending receipt of notice from the court to that effect.
Okay.
So that's my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good report, Brian. Any questions? Brian, regarding you call it a special assessment, like there's a neighbor on my corner that the house was vacant. So when we cut the grass, we charge $250. Are we allowed to add that to the property tax? I mean, that would be the issue, right?
No. Short answer is no.
Okay.
You have to set up a special assessment district. And you have to, and there's certain procedures for doing that. You have to have a number of public meetings, notices, that sort of thing. Set up a district for that purpose, then specially assess the benefited property owner.
Because when they don't pay a water bill right now, don't we add it to the property taxes?
Water bills are different.
Okay.
There were 3 items that we were asked to look at. One again was water bills and sewer. The other was grass cutting, and the third one was boarding up of
Public nuisance type cases. Okay.
We've had a few years ago.
So we out there on that grass cutting then? I see it's up for.
Well,
it's been
now it says sale
sold,
pending,
yeah,
sale pending, which is good, because
Yeah.
it's been vacant for a couple of years.
The city can charge, and this is, it's complicated. It's a 4-page, single-spaced memo. Sorry, Ron. But the city can charge and in certain cases impose a lien, but the lien will not be prior to the lien, other tax liens or to the lien of a mortgagee, for example.
I see.
When you get a special assessment district properly created with proper purpose, in other words, the special assessment charge fits within the special assessment system.
You can file lis pendens though. That way you could screw up their title.
Well, if you're in litigation, you can file a lis
Well,
pendens.
we could file a notice of intent to assess a lien then. Can't we do that?
I'm not real comfortable with doing that, but you can do it.
It could be slander
Okay.
title.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point.
Right.
How do you persuade people to pay?
Yeah, well, I know. It's nice to have a good remedy, a good clear
That's
cut
right.
remedy, so.
You just put a notice out there that we're gonna put, trust me, the bank is gonna say, you pay these people.
Right.
The $750 you owe.
Yeah.
The $1,500, the minuscule amount that, whatever it is, and come down here to closing with a paid receipt from the city hall, like you do with the water bill, and voila.
I love it. Yeah, no, okay.
Well, it's, you know, we don't have to be nice.
That's for the finance committee to determine tomorrow. Okay, well, I agree with you, Bruce, I agree. I mean, and then just having a mechanism, a remedy, a clear-cut remedy, because I know it kinda is like,
We used to, remember, we used to cut their lawns for free. It was a courtesy.
that's true, that's true, that's true.
That's a big one.
Mark, manager's report?
I was able to, well, I was at the managers conference over in Ann Arbor. Shane and I from the farms went to Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence's Municipal Leaders Roundtable. We thanked her and her staff who've been very helpful for us with the shoreline projects and stuff. So met some other municipal officials from, her district is such a gerrymandered district. From Pontiac and Royal Oak Township, Pontiac, down to us and some other Southfield,
Southfield, yeah.
Lathrop Village in between. But we should, the chief is going to follow up with Grosse Pointe Woods city administrator. They're pretty close to putting out bids on the renovations with the grant that they have, that we're part of without having to contribute anything, for their dispatch center and lockup facility. So we should know more about that soon. The Farms Court Administrator, who, Madeline, has done a wonderful job, is retiring in March, and she's been a really great person to deal with. They just advertised the position. She'll be with us through the end of March. She's moving to Florida to be with her family. So she and her husband, really, really nice people, should be missed. Met with the Ford House today. We've told them what their building permit numbers will be, and we expect, their plan is to pay us directly for all of their permits, and they put that in their contract documents. We're expecting, the contract documents, or the plans alone, are 400-plus pages. We need 3 copies of paper ones, and for the building official, 1 here, 1 to share among the plumbing mechanical, and then they will also pull, these have not been estimated, their plumbing mechanical permit and their electrical permits. Those are based on so many circuits or so many, the size of furnaces and stuff like that.
Will that come in 1 year, or will that be split over the 2
No,
fiscal
it'll
years?
come in pretty quickly this year, I believe. They're current on, except for a very minor bill, so they have been really great to deal with, and provided we give them the bills, the documentation for those bills, they paid virtually all of our construction bills with respect to the water main for the whole north end, so that's been very helpful.
Mark, with regard to that construction, so do you feel that we're capable of performing the inspections on a
Yes.
commercial property?
Yep.
Our staff is adequate for it?
Yeah, well, it's our contract employees. Gene Tutag has done projects like that, from addition to St. John Hospital to others. Plumbing mechanical is a little questionable, but I'm not sure how long he's going to be climbing up and down buildings, but we're taking a look at that. And electrical's also no problem. We'll be fine in terms of doing that. I've just gotten numbers, as did the other cities last Thursday, I think, on the fiber optic issues, and Bob Brett and I and the people from Rocket Fiber will be meeting in a couple of weeks to look at our return on investment and things like that, assuming there is one. And I will be out next week. I leave late Thursday for Disney World.
Oh,
Got to see Mickey Mouse a couple times a year. And that's it for me. Oh, are you going to mention the Wall of Honor? Those plaques have been on order, as well as the Mayor's Award. You wanna mention that?
are we going to have those next month, or?
We should have them, we'll be pretty close.
Okay, good, good. Okay.
That's it for me.
The only thing, Mark, where do we stand the historic marker from the state?
We're still waiting. Art's in Florida. I may see him while I'm down there because he's in Orlando as well. We're still waiting for the wording from the state, but we're expecting that virtually anytime.
Oh, we've been approved?
We've been approved for the marker. It will go front and back. It'll probably go on the lawn outside the entranceway. We want to see the write-up before it's ordered, so we can, if we need to make any changes or anything.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'd like the council to see the
Yes.
write-up, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Are there any questions of Mark?
I have one. Mark, I wondered if you could shed some light on the conversation you and I had
Sure.
regarding,
Tenure. Yes, it's a good item. I've spoken to each of our key people, and no one plans to be leaving in the short term. However, as part of our process, it's really important to provide succession planning for some of our positions. For example, in the DPW department, we're going to lose our water person, so we have a person that's training in that. We may, within a year or so, lose our person at the parks, so we'll need someone to train there. And of course, one of the problems is our person who's going to is training to take over in the water area, and he has that certification. He also happens to be our master gardener, so I'm glad she's not here tonight, may come by with a pitchfork or something after us if we don't fix that one too. So we'll be taking a look at all of that. But your key people, I think, are good, and each have indicated to me, certainly they'll give us consideration long-term in the same way that I would for city council. And I'll only tell you, with the new little car that I've leased, I gotta wait at least until that's paid off, so, or at least is over, so.
that's great news.
All right, thanks, Mark. We don't have old business, we have new business, and it's good new business because originally we were told it was gonna cost somewhere around
We had an
$400,000.
engineer's estimate for that, including complete curbs and gutters and all that stuff. Brett is really, again, this is really, he would say this, and I'm gonna say it on his behalf. We appreciate the council's consideration in letting the staff go forward with some of these ideas. As you know, we did 4 streets last year because we didn't spend it all on one. And we'll be talking about, Brett has been able to do some negotiations, and this came up. Mayor suggested that we add this evening, and it's not just Nagel that's included in that price, but DPW will be purchasing and installing the parking blocks themselves. We're going to buy plastic ones, I think, and so we can pull them up if we need to. That is a real good price, and our recommendation is for council to approve a change order for Nagel at all, meaning there'll be some other expenses in that to do the parking lot at the same time we do the tennis courts. And again, we got the guy on site. We'll check on the other issue as well and see. And of course, I believe, and Rhonda can support this, we believe, we know we have sufficient funds in a variety of sources that I outlined in my note, along with the chiefs on some of the items there, that we'll get into more detail with the finance committee.
Okay, good.
Well,
A motion would be great, or
okay, this is to pave the parking lot, but
at the park,
at the park.
yes.
But shouldn't this be a methodical, if we're going to do a gatehouse, we do that at the same time that we're going to be paving? If we're going to be widening the opening, we should be doing that at the same,
We are going to be widening the opening. Those costs will come back to you as soon as we have an estimate on that, but we need to firm that up. And just like we do with the lights, we'll be bringing those numbers back to you. Is the purpose of this and basically to reserve the time with Nagel, to say to them, we're going to do the parking lot, the configuration of which is yet to be determined, Is that what we're really trying to say here?
Saying?
Yes.
That is
But we could put the cement
I
down.
agree with you, Tina, because it's like, what the hell?
Why are we doing that?
You know,
If we're
I-
ripping it up.
But I can say that at the town hall on Saturday, there was a discussion about, you know, what process we go through in order to not go backwards. And there's a cement pad that's required for the location of the gatehouse. And if that cement pad is put down prior to repaving the parking lot, we can wait as long as we want to put the guardhouse in after that cement pad is put in. So we won't be putting too many carts in front of the horse and have to go backwards and demolish work we've already paid for. It's the right order to do it in, and we won't go backwards or spend redundant
I
money.
don't think it's the cement pad that we're really worried about, it's the widening of the gate. That's the big issue. Are we gonna widen the gate and make that permanent for the vehicles? And the answer to what we seems to be floating about is whether or not we proceed with a gatehouse, that's a separate and distinct issue from widening the gate. So the configuration says the gate will be widened
Yes.
at some point. Whether we accommodate a gatehouse in the future is still up for discussion. And I don't think anybody's really come to a conclusion on that as of yet. Because you still have to do the underground utilities. You gotta run electric. If you put a cement pad in, you gotta run all the conduit in the parking lot prior to paving, right? And you gotta make a
Yes.
decision too if you're gonna do, if it's gonna be wet or dry. Are you gonna have plumbing in there?
No.
No, but I mean, if we're gonna do it, this is the
You
moment.
are correct. You'd have to make that decision, but we're not planning on it. The current
You're not planning on having plumbing.
plumbing in it. Yes.
So the guard is gonna be running.
He's gonna have to walk.
No showers,
He or
no
she
bath.
will have to walk.
No steam room.
Okay, I mean, so what you're really trying to say is, you wanna reserve the time with Nagel,
Yes.
is what we're trying to say.
Well, he has all his equipment on the premises.
Well, that makes complete sense, I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, but I'm with Tina that says, we've spent 3 years screwing around with this thing, okay? From a simple project to, we're making this. And the whole intent was, everybody says, let's not make a misstep, okay, so let's not make a misstep again. Let's reserve the time, which I'm all in favor of, because we get it done, which is Bob's number one priority, get the project done. I agree with that, so, I mean, that's, and with the configuration, because it's gonna be, you're not gonna see them out there working on this until what? May?
April.
Yeah, or
As soon as it thaws.
They're not gonna be working on the on the
well,
parking lot
then
first.
this begs another conversation, is here we are again, pushing it again. You know, you're saying, yes, we're going to get these people to do the parking lot while the equipment is here, but a decision has to be made about that gatehouse.
Well,
There was,
am I,
as Matt kind of alluded to, there was a extensive discussion at the town hall meeting on this, and several of us have been batting it around for some time. And I think it's pretty clear at this point, we still have to have that final vote. But I would assume that at the finance committee meeting tomorrow, there's gonna be, again, an in-depth review of this. And I think several of us are of the opinion that we're just gonna do the whole thing at once and get it done. We have the funding to do it, and it's ridiculous to keep putting it off. And I'm sick and tired of hearing, we need another meeting on it. So that's why it was put on the agenda tonight, because we needed council approval for at least the 150 in order to reserve the time. You're correct. So we're not jumping forward and saying, well, we'll talk about the house later. No, that's gotta be done. But we're protecting ourselves on the price level.
Bob, am I right in my understanding that the gatehouse is a donation?
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. So if we like the design, then there's really nothing else to talk about, right?
But
Well,
that's,
there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah,
There's a significant amount to talk about, because you still go back to the fundamental issue. Do you need a gatehouse? You lose 20 parking spots. Where do you replace the parking spots? Do you enlarge the parking areas?
Well, let me ask the question, you know, as a new guy.
Are we gonna have this discussion tonight about all this? Is that
Yeah,
what we're
That's
gonna
why
do?
it's on the agenda, I thought.
We're talking about, we're not talking about a gatehouse and the park improvement plan.
Well, they kind of go hand in hand, don't they? I
Not
agree
really.
with what Tina said.
No, because, well, the approach that we're the finance committee's gonna meet tomorrow. They're gonna come out with a recommendation, I hope, as to what we'd like to do. And I think there's a real difference of opinion on a gatehouse. There's a difference of opinion on the finance committee about it, and I know there's a difference of opinion on the staff level. The staff, we started this process last year. I asked the staff to come and make a recommendation to us. What do they want as the administrators of our community who know the park issues the best and come back to it? That's what we got here today, this report. From that, we're supposed to draw conclusions. The chief's conclusion is, from a security perspective, it's not necessary. From a beautification and from a visual, it's a major plus. It looks very nice. It would enhance the, okay. So do we want to spend money to enhance the appearance of the park or for the security? The driver for a gatehouse had been for security.
But we're not spending the money.
We're spending the money, Matt. We maintain it. We're gonna pay for the electrical. We're gonna have to pave it. It's our dollar. Whether somebody donates $80,000 for the initial construction, we still have the responsibility to maintain it. We have the responsibility to man it. How do you administrate that? Are you gonna have somebody in the gatehouse after September the 1st when there's not a soul in the park? Are we gonna just pull the shades down and say we don't need it? What are we gonna do with the parking spots? We're gonna lose 20-some parking spots. Probably every weekend except for 3 out of the summer, it makes no difference. From what the chief's report was, from when I read it, we've only got a parking issue 3 times. Well, you don't build a facility for 3 times, obviously. You know, you park them on whatever you have to do. But those issues haven't been, and I've said this for months, they have to be yelled, screamed, argued passionately by all of us so that we can come out with what we think the best approach is. Because somebody donates the money doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. There's a lot of concern about security. Tina's got a great concern about security. That's one of her drivers that she's really concerned. Me, on the other hand, I'm not so sure we need it from a security perspective. Bob's of the opinion that if we're gonna do this once, let's do it right and let's do it for 20 years because we don't get any do-overs. That makes a lot of sense as well. There is no right answer here.
Have we ever voted on it?
We haven't gotten to the point where we knew what the numbers were and what the plan was.
I mean, just in concept. Have we ever, like, publicly voiced whether we're for the
No,
idea or
it
against?
hasn't been on the agenda to vote.
To know, like, what the big driver is staffing. The chief wants a gatehouse person and then another person at the other.
And why do we need another person? We were talking about this over the weekend. Why do we need another person at the entrance?
Ask me.
Why do we need the second
tell you.
person?
I mean, on behalf of the chief, the person at the gate has no access to see what's going on in the park from a security standpoint, from moving to, and that person is that's why we have 2 of them currently during the high times and the weekends. They're moving tables, they're checking people in off the list that people provide, et cetera. That, when we put a gatehouse to check them in as they're coming in, we don't have it, that person doesn't have access to the rest of the park.
Well, wouldn't that be, couldn't we utilize, as we talked about earlier, having like a harbor boy or a harbor person,
We're
you
gonna
know,
have a second maintenance person,
doing the
yeah,
case?
cleaning up and stuff like that, that we
Like the
haven't,
yacht
we're
club
already
does.
budgeting that.
Right, so why can't that person be our lookout for the park and
Different, anything is possible.
That's a minimum wage job, number one.
Yeah.
That's a summer job. That kid, the harbor kid is a kid,
Right.
and he's a college kid, and you're not gonna give him responsibility to be a park ranger, okay? The point is, we're not the ones that are gonna manage this, okay? They are gonna the administration's gonna manage it. So they should tell us, they feel that they want 2 people.
But don't we currently have 2 people? I mean, whenever I
No,
go to the
another
park.
person, they're gonna add a person at the gatehouse.
So you're gonna have 3 people?
You're gonna have 3 people at peak season, right?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Well, clarify,
Why do you need
you gotta defend what you guys want.
Right,
Okay,
why
so-
would
so
you
tell
need
us
3
what you want.
people?
One of the reasons that we had discussed, and I've discussed this with Mark, is that if you staff the outside gate, the really, that individual, and you staff that gate only, the inside person, there is no inside person to drive the residents to their picnics, to check in the various people for the gazebos, kids swimming in the harbor, kids fishing in the harbor, injuries on the playfield, or on the, so a great deal of the time, I think you're gonna have to staff both. Currently, we have Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, we have 2 individuals in the current booth. One can drive residents to their picnics. You just need 2 people. They sell ice inside as well. So
Our concession people should be able to do
the
that.
contention is, and I spoke with all my rangers too, and if you just staff the outside, he really has no idea what's going on inside the park. And there are things that they do. They have counts for people. They help people with their picnics.
Sure.
They help boaters.
Well, I'm not saying, I just think that it would be, okay, how does the farms do it? How does the park do it? How does the city, how does the woods
Barnes
do it?
staffs
How
the
do they do
outside
that?
booth, and they have additional personnel inside the park.
So if we have 2 people currently working on the weekends, and we continued with that, one in the gatehouse and one at the actual entrance, what's changed?
You're gonna have one more
Need them
person.
during the week.
What?
I think you're going to require that personnel during the week.
Now, who's sitting inside the pool office that who's in there?
Well, there are lifeguards. Sometimes there's a pool supervisor in there.
Right, okay. And
But
that's
their
just,
attention is
just
strictly
the
to the
pool.
pool.
Okay,
They are pretty committed.
okay.
But you're saying you're gonna have 2, you're not gonna change your staffing out in the park proper.
Right.
You're going to add a person at the gatehouse, and you're gonna have that gatehouse staff, how? Monday through
that's-
Friday?
That's a decision. It has to be staffed while the pool is open for sure, and my recommendation would be that during the week, you're going to have addition, I don't know what the exact hours are or what council would approve, but you're gonna need an additional person inside.
No, back up.
Doesn't make any sense.
We're saying we're gonna, if we build the gatehouse, the gatehouse attendant, it's our expectation at least that that person would be on duty the hours that the park is open. Okay, why would we put a gatehouse in and not have it staffed the hours that the park is open?
Currently,
correct.
do we always have an employee at the park?
Yes.
Okay, so that employee would be the gatehouse person moving forward, if there were a gatehouse.
No, because you're gonna have persons in the park. You're not gonna you're not gonna move the guy from point A to point B.
Why?
Because he says that they need those people to perform their duties. Are you gonna check everybody in for a gazebo when they pull up to the park?
No,
Well,
we're
that's
saying,
not what's happening right now. No one's using the gazebo, but there's a person over there. So if that person was just moved up 150 yards to the new gatehouse,
You're gonna
what's
check
changed?
everybody's pass in the vehicle for the park, when they pull into the parking lot.
I'm just asking the
But
question.
that's only on the weekends. That's, the
The
pavilion really is,
That person at the outside gatehouse is not gonna have any idea what's going on inside the park, because he's too far away from it. And you have certain needs within the park,
So-
is what they tell me.
So you're $31,000 per year here.
Well, that's staffing it for 2 shifts, from 7 to 3 and from 3 to 11. Now, that may be.
7 days a week,
Correct.
365 days a year.
No, just the 100 and whatever I mentioned in the report, 153 days, I think it was.
That's the
May,
high,
June, July, August, yeah, just the peak months.
okay, so after that point, then the gatehouse is,
You could staff only the outside gatehouse.
and then what do we do on court day?
Court day, we would have to tell them that the overflow parking is gonna be coming in, and that's,
So we let them in for that.
so you're gonna let them in?
we're gonna have to.
Well, then that goes back to the whole security issue of why we want a gatehouse. This is not a public parking lot. I don't park at the farms when I have to go across the street.
I wish I had an alternative for you. I don't know where we're
I
gonna,
mean, that's, that's the whole reason to have this gatehouse, is that parking lot is being used as a public parking lot. People going downtown, people using it from coming over here, people that are playing soccer are using that parking lot, not this one. Because, so that was the whole reason, is to stop all of this extracurricular parking of people that that aren't in the shores. So now you're saying that on court day, we're just gonna let them in?
well, if there's an alternative that you can share with me, I'd appreciate it.
I don't know.
Because you're gonna lose the 21 spots as,
You know, Bob brought up an interesting thing about the lost spots. He said if we widen the gate and we have one entrance, during park hours, the other entrance, or the other opening, which is an exit right now, those gates could be closed, and all of the area that's left open right now for traffic to get out could be coned as temporary parking every time. And it's,
That's only 4 or 5 spots. It's a very small area.
About 4 spots.
4 spots.
okay.
Okay, 4 spots isn't gonna, it's not gonna fundamentally change. You gotta go back, and then you got the fundamental decisions you gotta decide. It's at least, if we're saying that we want the park gatehouse, proposed gatehouse, staffed the hours that the park is open, okay, take $31,000 at least times 2. It's 100 and some days, we got 365. Okay, now you may be able to make a decision, do you wanna have only the gatehouse staffed after Labor Day? But that means if you've got the other gatehouse, nobody in there, and there's an ice fisherman that goes in the water, the guy at the gatehouse isn't gonna hear him going that way. Those are the decisions are cumulative in terms of the expenses. So they donate the money, that's great. But it's all the administration afterwards. I mean, if you build a gatehouse and you don't use it after Labor Day, maybe that's not such a bad thing. I don't know.
Well, I think we need to address what, as administration, where you guys are all thinking is when they have soccer and they have an overflow, are you saying use the park? I mean, we're gonna tell the gatehouse, let the soccer people use our parking lot? Are we, we're saying court day can do it, soccer people can do it? Are we just saying, then basically anybody who wants to park here, we're just gonna tell the gatehouse people, just make sure they're not criminals? Or, I mean, how are they even gonna know that? You know what I'm saying? It's like, we need to know where you're gonna go with letting people park there.
Tina, let's back up though. Let's be realistic. If you go to the park after Labor Day,
Right.
there's not a soul there. There's nobody there from Labor Day.
I'm not talking about
Few.
Labor Day.
Right.
I'm talking about in this summertime when we're having kids running around the park and people are up at the park.
Right, but I'm saying to you that if the chief's expert would propose staffing the gatehouse only during the peak summer months and relying on the rest of the time basically on the status quo procedure that we've had for 40 years, which is a guy at the other
Right.
there. What we're doing is we're creating a permanent structure to reflect what you've done in the past, which was with the checking everybody's pass on the holidays. Okay, that's what basically, that's the operating scenario that we envision. Because you're not gonna staff the park after Labor Day. Because, I mean, there is nobody that goes over there. The only people who go over there are the people with their dogs.
Yeah, they chase the geese for us.
Right.
And the squirrels, don't forget squirrels. Squirrels are very important to some people. So there's not much, it's no crime, if you will, or there's nothing wrong with closing the gatehouse or not using it. It's a summertime facility, which says that construction-wise, you should, maybe you can, if you don't have any water in it, then you can really minimize the construction costs and do it that way.
I agree with what you're saying as far as maybe not staffing it, and that's something that needs to be discussed, is not staffing it after Labor Day. But according to what the chief is saying now, that parking lot still needs to be utilized during the summer months on court days, et cetera days.
4 days. We have court once a month.
Twice a month.
Twice a month? Okay. And you could direct them into the dirt parking lot.
Assuming it's dry, yeah, we can.
We can put them over, and we just say that this overflow parking goes over there. They're offenders. What do we care where they park?
I don't care.
You know what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying, I think we all need to be in agreement of, what your expectations are of who gets to park there, what our expectations are of the residents who are, who are there, are being able to do that. So I think that needs to be.
The other thing-
But maybe we need to table this.
I think the other thing you can say is that it's a work in progress. We try the parking, you try it this way, if you have to tune the parking structure, the parking situation after the first couple months, we adjust. You can, if you have to, you put them out on Lake Shore for a couple hours.
My chief concern with some of the figures that were drafted was service to the residents, service to our seniors, service to the boats, the picnics, the gazebos. Because frankly, there's a lot of people who need a lot of help. And
Well, I totally agree that, you know, for that reason, we could have two, one in the gate, one back there. I just don't know if three is enough. Or three is too many, I'm sorry. If you have two in the back and one in the gatehouse, I think that's too much. I mean, there are times that, you know, they're doing this.
well, I think it's probably workable.
If you're talking about, I mean, your write-up is referring to about 15 grand for cameras. Those monitors can be in any place, and they can see what's going on in the park. So I don't know that we need somebody physically walking around to observe it.
Those cameras are not, however, monitored live. They are for evidentiary purposes, should they be
To
necessary.
solve a crime, not to
Right.
prevent a crime.
They're not-
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a.
They're not watching them live.
Chief, we had at the town hall, a Grosse Pointe Woods council member, we all know and love. But he said that once you get past the gatehouse in the woods, there's no security. There's nobody on the premises. And he said he thought that was the same way in the farms in the park. So they just have one person manning the gatehouse, and then that's it.
And then they have
There's
someone in
somebody,
the pool,
there's somebody to,
office.
to give him
There are
backup.
people
to-
in the pool, in the pool area, there's people in the,
Harbor.
the other, yeah.
Maintenance.
There's maintenance, there's a maintenance building there, so, in addition to that, some of them, that whole park maintenance that reports to, but there's somebody out in the, where the old ice rinks used to, where the ice rinks are now, in the woods, there's people there too. I bet that's staffed with a minimum of 3 people currently, almost, obviously not late at night, there's probably down to 2, but, the maintenance people aren't there that night, but they are during the day and stuff.
But that's also a park 5 times the size of ours. So, you know,
Plus,
you have to.
A lot more amenities, a lot of buildings.
Right,
Right,
so you
right.
kind of have to put what we have here in perspective of that, so.
Well, like even in
Oh.
the cities park, and they don't have a gatehouse, but when you go and you give your pass, I mean, it's pretty far away from the picnic area and where the pool is. So that person is just basically checking passes, and that's their job.
That's right. Gary, would you like to add something?
I have a question about not having water at the gatehouse. And you only have one person there. This guy's gotta be relieved over an 8-hour period. In that gatehouse, all it is 8 hours by himself. Where does that go?
Well, there'll be
Calls
shifts.
the
No, they'll be, I mean,
pool
you've got the
and
guy,
he's got relief.
the other person that's at the front, I mean, they can, you know, do that swapping.
From my understanding, we currently have 2 people, and if we kept it that way, then person number 2 would call, or the guy in the gatehouse would call employee number 2 and say, hey, look, I need some relief, and that person comes and takes over, and then they go take a break. I mean, I don't think it's difficult, and I agree with Bruce. I mean, I think that even if you guys are convinced that we need 3 people, I mean, to do that on a seasonal basis, just from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Do those guys have radios? No. So we would give those 3 people radios?
Yes, well, perhaps. Remember the 3, we're only discussing that on Saturday, Sundays, and holidays.
I understand, but if those 3 would have a radio so they could,
There could be a radio to communicate, yes.
just a walkie-talkie. Pardon me?
There'd be a phone on their desk as well.
Yeah.
Would be a cell phone.
Well, there's a landline inside the current booth, and I think that they probably.
That's because it was built before cell phones.
But yeah, you could do walkie-talkies or something to that.
Well, the point, this is how you're gonna relieve, the guy at the gatehouse. You're gonna,
call.
or you have walkie-talkies so the three people can communicate to each other during the course of their day.
The worst case is you walk 120 feet and you leave the gate open and then you come back. I mean,
And
that's.
the whole place is pilfered and robbed.
That's right, that's right.
There goes your sign.
In
There
those
goes your
25
security.
seconds.
My vote.
Gone fishing.
Yes, that's even better.
Come back in a half hour.
And a motorman's glove.
So, Mr. Mayor, where do we need to go
Well,
at this point?
This is the paving of the parking lot. It has nothing to do, with some of the other infrastructure improvements. Nagel Paving is doing the work on the tennis courts. They were essentially the lowest bidder. They've offered us a great price while their equipment is there, $150,000 to do the complete parking lot. And if we have a footprint for the proposed gatehouse, they'll work around it. So there's no duplication or waste of resources. So at this point, it's recommended, and I need a motion to accept this proposal by Nagel Paving in the amount of $150,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion, or we've had some discussion already?
Is this a not to exceed amount?
Yes.
Not to exceed
amount, and
150.
note that includes DPW guys buying and
The plastic stops
Yeah.
too? It includes that?
So the motion is not,
Not
change
to
your motion
exceed.
Yes,
not to exceed.
Not to exceed $150,000.
Is this
And
for
this is what it-
striping too? Striping the lots or the spots? Will it be, okay.
Yes.
two for the handicap side, but 20 if the gatehouse goes. So it's a total of 22 that we lose if the gatehouse is.
And this will be after the gates are widened?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, if there's not further discussion, that motion's on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you.
Item B is, we have in the past, but since we have the opportunity with tonight's meeting, I was on a conference call for an hour and a half on Friday with the Corps of Engineers, the Great Lakes Commission, and some other staff people. Shane, we would like council to approve what you have done in the past and authorize me to sign a joint letter with the farm city manager, being supportive of the grant application to NOAA. I'll send you the draft of the letter as soon as, I guess you have a draft there, but as soon as we sign it, and I don't think, we're going to designate 2 spots for a demonstration project. The Corps of Engineers have been very helpful. They're hopped on this. SEMCOG is partially sponsoring this. Potential, if we get funding, and we'll get support from our congressional delegation, I believe, on this as well, that they may be applying for $3 million, which could be renewed twice or more. So we'll pick a spot. We've picked a spot probably just north of Provincial where the curve is, and that's more some of our worst concrete is deteriorated there. And they're doing this under the Great Lakes Restoration Act, so there'll be, the city attorney, Brett and I, and some others have toured with the Corps of Engineers some of the improvements along the St. Clair River. They want to put some money into Lake St. Clair. Our location would be a demonstration project along the shoreline there, which is really would help restore fish habitat, which is the partial reason for it. And the farm is submitting the area between their park and Crescent, which is a nice closed area also. It's a bigger, it would probably be a bigger cost and demonstration project there, but
So they're gonna tear the seawall out?
unclear at that point.
I mean,
Unclear as
this
to
is
what.
demolition. I mean, something's getting torn out.
It's not, there will be some demolition and repair, along with perhaps some, what they did in the St. Clair River that we saw, they put another bundle of boulders and stuff in front of to break the action.
So they're gonna put riprap out there like we did?
Potentially, yes. But that would be designed to the Corps of Engineers specs, and that's all part of that would all be part of the project. To see that these things work and to demonstrate that that would be the case.
I
So
can
it could
tell you,
be-
from my personal experience, I would consider myself expert in this particular area. This is what my business does. I was involved in building the Detroit Riverwalk downtown, and to demolish that cement wall, which was a terrible idea to begin with. Cement seawalls don't work, they don't last. But the proper way to do this is to put a steel seawall in front of the cement seawall that exists, tie it back 20 feet underground with tieback rods, and then backfill it with either cement or topsoil. But leave the existing wall as it is and just build a wall in front of the wall, and you get 100 years out of it.
But what do you do with the top that's very detrimental to people walking, that's all broken?
That's
So
uneven.
if you look at, if you look at the grade of that wall, that walkway, it slopes down, right? So what you do is you pick a common height and put the steel seawall in front of the existing wall. And then this area here would get filled with soil.
Okay.
And you could either sod it, or if you wanted to just put crushed rock or whatever you want to do. But the reality of it is that if you mill out channels in the existing cement walkway, and then underground, there's a steel rod that goes all the way back to a, what's known as a dead man wall. And that dead man wall holds the steel structure up from shifting when the ice presses against it. And actually, the benefit of having the cement wall there is it offers an incredible amount of support subterranean to the new wall. And I really think that that's the way to do it, and it's probably way cost effective. So I just would like to go on record as saying that I think that's something that should be explored. Because other projects we've done in the Great Lakes area, specifically Port Huron and in Detroit and downriver, they've built walls in front of the wall.
I think that's, would be part of the design, and as, if they were to get funding, and of course, there will be, this particular grant does not have a 70-30 arranged like the last one that the Corps was working on. But the Corps will be coming up with design, and they'll be happy to get input, I'm sure, from with people that have expertise. I will only tell you my 100-year wall at the lake lasted 37 years. And we're now on our second one, it better not collapse, or I'll be dead anyway. But, and you know, we get a lot different wave action there, but one of the reason we can qualify for this demonstration grant, because it really, they're looking to restore fish habitat and stuff, which if you have seen the area really along Marysville, Port Huron area, they really did some neat things there that we were impressed with the tour. So we want to take a shot at this, see if we can get a couple of demonstration areas, and then see how bad, what their design would actually be. And we'll be writing, assuming council approves authority to write the letter, I'll send you a copy of it, and we'll keep everyone informed. But this is the closest we've come so far to getting, and, one of the key things here is making sure the county, this is a county road, not necessarily our responsibility to pay for this thing.
And that seawall was put in during the FDR administration, right?
I think it was in the, 30s.
The 30s and 40s.
And the county does limited maintenance.
This lasted 90 years, 80 or 90 years, so maybe.
So this
But it was resurfaced in the 70s.
With the fundamentalizing. I'm in favor of it. I don't like it.
So this letter is just a letter, there's no money attached to this or anything?
Well, it says local cost share of blank, whenever I see a blank in front of a dollar sign.
We have
There's
no
such thing
commitment
as,
until there was signed contract for this, and we'll have estimates long before that as to what the design would be. And again, we've talked about this for some time. We may need to participate along with the fund in terms of some costs. A lot of that can be indirect costs, meaning we can run off our engineer's time, our administrative time. And there are certain things you can't do. We're not requiring, we're not going to be acquiring right of way or anything like that. But there are other things that can be included as part of our indirect costs. And we'll see, but that will all come back to council before. If they were able to get funded along with some of the other agencies involved, they're looking for a project on Lake St. Clair, which is not what they call an AOC area of concern, like the Detroit River or the St. Clair River. And this goes all the way down to on the far end of the Detroit River down by Lake Erie too, so.
So is their project point to bring in like a natural breaker type where it's boulders?
Potentially, as well as actually design, one of our problems is how can we estimate, we know what seawall costs, and we know what demolition stuff, and how could we estimate the total project cost design, a real design of what they want to do, so that's why we're looking for various alternatives to, you know, if we could enhance fishing habitat at the same time as get some fixed that need to be fixed. And certainly we're keeping our county commissioner well informed about this.
So if they built these jetties, would they be opposed to us putting a steel wall in front of our wall? Or does it have to be?
It's hard to say. I'll just say my own experience with the Corps of Engineers has been, it can go a foot in front of a net yet.
Yeah.
You can enhance, even though you may own property out there, about 100 feet further into Lake Huron. But to do it. My neighbor on the north side of the Dunapple, his beach area ends right by my dining room window, which is a problem with the high water time. But well, I'd see what the design would be, but this is a real opportunity to get something, to move something forward quickly.
Just remember, it's not our, you know, we didn't break it, we don't own it.
That's right.
We're not getting stuck with the bill for it.
That is exactly right.
Okay, at this point then, I need a motion to approve the grant letter to be signed by Mark once all the particulars have been decided. The format of the letter's gonna circulate, so.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. Public comment? Any public comment? Vito, I see you sitting there so patiently. No public comment? Okay, council comment, Bob?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Matt? I'm all set.
Thank you to all the committee members and the people that have given us their time so far this year. We appreciate it.
Good. Bruce?
No comment.
Bob?
No further comment?
Doug?
Nope.
Well, a couple comments by myself. Last week, the Pension Commission met, Chuck, our expert pension commissioner. We met during this time of great volatility in the stock and bond market as well, so. But we've been assured that our portfolio is in good position. We're in a defensive position. Our allocation cannot exceed 70% in equities, and then the remainder being bonds and cash, as well as alternative investments. And we got a good report, so that's reassuring. Also, last Saturday, we had a town hall meeting, and we've already discussed it. We had a small number of residents, but we had quite a few that called in before and that called after. And we talked about the park and the park improvements. Everyone's excited about the resurfacing of the tennis courts. We're gonna play a nice big opening tournament. John's wife is the commissioner, in charge of the tennis tournament in the back. The bathhouse improvements have been made to bring it updated. The parking lot, we knew it needed to be repaved. We got a great bid by Nagel Paving, which surprised us. And it was really a no-brainer today to vote on it. And then, again, we talked about the redesign of the park entranceway, because right now, it's not very safe. I think the Michigan Department of Transportation requires a certain width. And one of the worst things that you can have in a park that has a marina is a fire. A fire, near the boat. So I think we talked about whether or not you can get a fire truck with an aerial ladder. This will alleviate and mitigate any problems we have entering the park with an emergency vehicle. We talked about, at the town hall, dedicated pickleball courts. I didn't know that, and pickleball is the fastest growing sport in North America. Many of our residents have brought it to our attention. Matt, what you were talking with the Improvement Foundation, Brett, you were at the town hall. We talked about possibly finding a location for dedicated pickleball courts. The bones are getting too old on people like me, and tennis is just too aggressive of a sport really to play. Pickleball is a great alternative, and I could see why it's a fast-growing sport. We talked about Schroeder Park too, because Brett, you brought up a number of points, and we had good discussion about expanding the services that we offer to try to attract the young families to the shores. This is all about attracting new and younger residents. I don't want to be accused of age discrimination, but attract younger residents to the shores, because that's our future. The future is not here. The future is not me. The future is the young families. And some of the things that they talked about doing. Some of the people said that they just enjoy walking now in the park with or without a dog and enjoying the tranquility and the beautiful vistas that our park offers. A number of people called and said that was great by keeping the park open. It's like all to themselves. And we talked about the new gatehouse, which got some attention tonight, and we talked about even having a park director. Maybe it wouldn't be a part-time, it'd be a part-time person, but someone who could maybe assist in the programming as we try to get more programs for younger families. So, well, the next time we meet, it's going to be the eve of spring, although I'd like to think today's the last day of winter. Our next meeting is Tuesday, March 20th. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Frank Parker was the only guy who makes,
Don't play 36.
But I mean, when you think about it, especially in the Great Lakes, any major marina or structure is still.
No, I. Once you get on your way.
Doing well. Maybe outside.